Okay, so welcome everybody. This is the last. Let me close and clear this first. Good. All right, so this is the last class of Intro to Programming. So this is part 8. Holy crap! So that means this is what I've been doing this for. This is the 8th week I've been doing this. I guess ninth because I kind of
2 months
yeah. So 2 months of stuff. Um, cool.
of learning.
Of learning. So last time we talked about classes. So this is kind of, remember, we had this. We talked about our book class that has 3 fields. Shit, I forgot my iPad. Hold on, I'll have to go get that. Excuse me. So we talked about 3 fields, right? Remember, a class is like, that big box of memory, and then a field is like, a smaller box inside of it. So this has 3 fields. It has a title. It has an author first name. Excuse me, too much coffee, and an author last name. So we could, let's see, so we just go Python, oh wait, I don't actually, so, yeah, that's right, I don't actually print anything, that's not useful. So we had, can construct a new instance of the object by saying like book, and you give it the, the title, the first name, last name, everything gets assigned here, and then we have methods that we can call, so we can say like print, traffic dot get author full name, and if we run this, we'll print Tom Vanderbilt because we look at the self first name, self last name, we concatenate everything together. So that's kind of what we talked about last time. The homework from last time was to write a point class that has 2 fields, x and y, and one method to calculate the distance from the origin from 0, 0. You also had to create a string representation of it. So like if we did, print traffic, we print, traffic was written by Tom Vanderbilt, so this kind of built-in magic method we talked about. And then for extra credit, you can implement this equality magic method, so you could do equality with like the double equal sign. So I looked at all your homework. Most people got it right. Most people kind of figured it out pretty well. This is one I'm going to take a look at in closer. Whoops. We're going to take a closer look at it. And yeah, well, let's talk about it. So let's save this first. Users, Benjamin, documents. If I was smart, I would have done this earlier, but that's okay. Oh, I put Control S on the wrong thing. That's why. Okay, we'll just call this point.py. Okay, so if we run it. So we generate a couple points, we have some equality operators, and we have this distance thing. So let's take a look at what we do here. So here's our point class. So we have our initializer, that underscore underscore init underscore underscore method that takes a self, which you have to put this self in. It takes an x position and it takes a y position, which we assign to self.x, self.y. Remember, anything that begins with self is like kind of that internal box, which we call a field. We have this method called abs, so that's the distance to 0, 0. And if you remember from your math class, the distance formula is the square root of the square of the x and plus the square of the y. So this is x squared plus y squared, and then the square root of that. You remember that's Pythagorean theorem, right? A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Same
Hopefully
thing.
they know that.
What's that?
Hopefully people in the chat know that.
Hopefully. It's okay if
And
you
this
didn't
is
have to. If you have to look it up, that's
knowledge.
okay. And then we have the string representation. So you, this person said, the string point open open paren plus the stringified x coordinate, comma, stringified y coordinate, and then the close paren. So it looks something like this. Then, okay, so I really wanted to talk. Okay, so before I go on, does anyone have any questions about that? And then I'm going to talk about the equality operator. And I will give you 30 seconds to ask a question, and I will go get my iPad because I have a feeling I may need it.
Objection is not a question, Wodar.
Objection is something, it's an exclamation, man.
It is an interjection.
Someone explain the best evidence rule. Wodar, do you remember the best evidence rule?
Isn't it something about you can't like double take evidence or something?
No, not
Oh
quite.
no! Oh no! It's like you can't like it is kind of like that. Isn't it like you can't fuck.
It's like third hand stuff. Or
No,
is that the
no,
hearsay?
So
Yeah.
it's basically if you're trying to prove contents that are contained in a document,
You don't get
like
someone else to talk
yeah,
about
you
it.
and you have the document, you can't just say what's in the document. You
You
just
You
put
just have
present the
to state
document.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
no, you just put the document into evidence. That's it.
All right, so Mr. Swats wants to know the difference between okay, so there's a couple. If you were looking at the Python documentation, you probably saw those as underscore underscore repr underscore underscore method, and they both kind of seem to do the same thing. So the str method is meant to be kind of human readable. It's meant to be like something that you would show a person. The REPR one is kind of meant to be kind of more of a programmer debugger view of just like here's kind of a more complex dump of the object itself. So hopefully that is the answer to that.
So str stands for
For string,
string
and REPR is like representation.
represent.
Yeah, exactly. So Harisha is right. It's just like the Java toString function. Exactly. And in fact, if you remember how you can cast things to a string by wrapping an str, so if you wrapped an object, so like if I was down here and I said, str, pt1, that would call the string representation. So there you go. Yeah, toString is really nice. This is the Python equivalent. Okay, so let's talk about this equals thing. Yeah, exactly, Mr. Swats, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about this equals method. So here we do, 0.1 equals equals 0.2, which happens to be false, right? So here's the rub. ToString lets you convert every other variable. Barons, it's a little more complicated than that. I'll talk about it after class. Okay. So what are we gonna do? Okay, so equality. So equality takes self is a special magic method that takes two arguments. Do I know Lisp? Yeah, I'm not great at it though. So equality takes two arguments. It takes the self method, and it has to take the self method because every single instance method has to take self as its first parameter. And then it takes a second one, which is what we're testing equality against. So what's the first thing that this person does? The first thing they do is they call this isInstance thing. So what this actually does, and this is why I kind of wanted to pick this example, is what this does is it takes this second argument and asks, is this a point object or is this some random thing that they're passing to us? Like I could call, pt1 equals 5, and like what the hell, like what does that even mean, right? Like that makes no sense. You can't like literally comparing apples and oranges. So that's what this line does, is like, is the thing that we've asked, like is that is the thing that we've been asked to check equality against, is that also a point? So if it is, we return, is our x the same as the other x, and is our y the same as the other y? That's it. So we return true if this is true, we return false if it's not, and then otherwise we return false. So obviously pt1 equals 5 is just false. There's a comment about maybe you can throw an exception. I wouldn't. I would just return false. That's kind of my thing. In some languages like this would be a compile error. Like the compiler would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Python doesn't do that because Python is not one of those things. So Alright, so any questions on the homework? Oh my god. Oh, thank you, Tune. So is comp an instance of the class point? Yeah, Nathaniel, that is exactly what this line is doing. Is comp an instance of the point class? Exactly. Nope, no homework questions. Alright, I'll give like 10 more seconds, then I'm going to move on. We're going to talk about something cool. Something that actually a lot of people have asked to talk about, so... Does there have to be a space before it? Oh, Nathanielus. So a lot of people have asked me to talk about this topic, and I think now is a good time to do it. We're going to talk about reading files. So let's make a list of names. So who's in chat these days? Whammer is in chat. Kledos is in chat. Nanthelis is in chat. Valiant Cookie is in chat. A Forgotten Tune is in chat. Anyone else? Mr. Swats is in
Whammer has
chat.
1M.
Oh, Whammer has 1M? Oh, good call. Thank you.
Porteous.
P-O-R-T. Swats I got already. Put me twice. Oh, God. Alright, so I'm going to save this file real quick. Spiffers. Oh, God. Alright. Spiffers, the Grand, and Jim Bob. Is it 4 or 3 O's? It's 3 O's.
3 O's.
Alright, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to save this file. I'm just going to call it names. And we're going to make a, whoops. And we're going to make a new Python file. So, set up as Python. I'm going to save this as, we're just going to call this print names.py. Okay. Does isInstance return true or false? Yes. Okay. So the way we read files is with a built-in function called open. So open takes 2 parameters. So you call it like this. It takes 2 parameters. It takes the name of the file, so we'll call it names because that's what we saved it as. And then it takes what's called a mode. So the mode can be a couple things. The one mode that we care about right now is mode R, which stands for read, because we want to, shocking shockers, we want to read the file. Now, what this returns, so we actually have to do this, because what this actually returns is what's called a file object. This is kind of a handle. This variable, that, or this thing that it returns, which we assign to F, is a little a handle that kind of represents the file that we're looking at. Okay? So actually I can do it in here. So if we do Python and we say like open names R, you can see it says open file names, you know, mode R, and then some gibberish.
You should probably use better representations instead of just F if you want to get people in the habit of...
Probably. I know. Don't do single variable names. I just do it. Why are the parameters strings? Well, file names are just strings, and then modes can be a little more complicated. Like there's R, there's W, there's A, and then there's like RB for like binary data, and you know, there's a lot of different things. What's up, Junicus? How you doing? So this file object has a couple methods on it. So the first thing that's kind of interesting is read lines. So we can say lines equals f.readLines. And now what's going to happen? So let's do that here. Let's close this. Whoops.
Oh my god, this is have FB file if that's not a special
It's a
word
special
in Python.
thing. It's a
Damn
special.
it.
All right, so F, and then we'll do f.readLines.
special.
So what this returns, or so what lines is, and now lines is a list of every line from the file, right? So Whammer, Kledos, Nathanielus, here they all are. What you'll probably noticing is like, what the hell is this /n at the end of everybody's name, except for Jim Bob, of course, because Jim Bob is special. Yeah, what is this /n? The /n is a new line, so that basically means that there's a new line character at the end, because like the concept of line doesn't make any sense in a file, right? A file is just kind of a long string of data. So there's a special character that means there's a new line here. So it says, you know, we print Whammer, and then there's a new line character, and then there's Kledos, and there's a new line character. Python just at read lines will kind of automatically find where those /n's are, and then
Aren't
split
they
them.
separated by the new lines?
Are these
Hold on,
all
one
strings
person at a
as
time.
well?
All right,
I was
Kledos.
saying, is this seeing this all as strings? Is each one of these being turned into a string?
Yes.
Other...
So this is a list of strings, and each element is one line of the file.
And is there some way to specify it as something other than a string? Or do you have to convert
You'd have to
in
convert
some
it
way?
later.
Yeah. Okay.
Doesn't read lines eat more RAM than Chrome? Probably, but I got 64 gigs of RAM, so who cares?
But aren't they doesn't it separate the strings by looking for the new lines?
Yeah, it
The
does.
slash ends.
Yep.
But then
Not here.
why does it then
I
put
don't know.
why does it then also put the slash in the?
That's just the way it
Is
is.
that just the default? Okay.
Yeah.
I get
So
the
there's
idea.
there's
It
a
might be
method
useful.
called chomp or strip. No, chomp is in Perl, so it's strip in Python. That will strip like new line characters off of strings.
Uh-huh.
So you can do that. So that's about it. There's a couple other things. So just keep in mind, when you're done with a file, you got to call close on it, or else bad things happen. You ever see that thing where it's like you try to delete a file, and then Windows is like, oh, this file's in use right now. Well, that's essentially what's going on. Is when you call this open method, you tell the operating system, okay, I want access to this file. Don't do anything to it, and then you kind of do what you want. And then when you call close, you tell the operating system, okay, I'm done with the file. You can go ahead and delete or whatever. So that's where that's kind of what that error means, right? It's like, so somebody has an open file or an open handle to that file, and that's kind of one of the overly simplified kind of what's going on there. So make sure you close your files when you're done. And I will actually tell you a shortcut on how to do that in just a second. Okay, so we've done this. We can just print lines and then f.close. We'll save it, and of course if we do Python print names, we'll just get the exact same thing we did. Yeah, no surprises there, I hope. The last thing I will show you is you can, the list is just like a list, so you can say, for current line in lines. So remember, we can do that strip thing I told you about. So current, so like stripped line equals current line dot strip, and then print hello plus stripped line. Then we close the file. If we run that again, we get hello Whammer, hello everybody. So there you go. Where's the BOGO sort running? I'm not running BOGO sort right now.
Hello, PowerShell.
I'm not wasting the
You should always be
not
running
wasting the
BOGO
CPU
sort.
cycles.
But why do you have 64 gigs of RAM?
Why?
For
So-
BOGO sort, so you can BOGO sort.
Are we also
24
going
Yeah.
to?
Oh God, crazy Kaylee. All
Are we
right.
also going to see how to write to a file?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay, so any questions on anything I just showed right now? Does that mean other escape sequences are considered single characters? I mean, yeah, they're like a single byte in the file, yeah. Though some escape sequences are more than 1 byte long, so like, changing color, right, is a couple bytes, but they're all kind of special characters. Does Python always print each statement on a separate line? Yeah, so what print does is print essentially prints the text, and then it puts a new line in at the end for yourself. Is there a way to print on the same line with multiple print statements? There is. I believe just, was it adding a comma to the end strips out the new line? Someone remind me?
That sounds right.
I don't even remember. I used it in one of my early homework things.
99 bottles of beer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can also do printf as well. Oh yeah, it is the comma.
Stuff.
So there you go, and just do that. Yeah, so there you go. There's everything on one line. So the comma at the end tells Python not to put the new line character. Okay, so it is. All right, I was right there. It feels good to be right. All right. So any other questions about this kind of read lines thing? Fast sort? Do you mean quick sort?
See, but I think BOGO sort. It takes like a true genius to like even think of BOGO sort.
Something like that.
Uh-huh. It takes a real genius to do the.
Wait, hold on. Did the comma add a space? Oh, it did. Huh. Oh, yeah. That makes sense. So what you can do is you can also just kind of build the output up and then just print it all at once. You can also use like you can write directly to what's called the standard out. There are ways to do that, but I will not I will not cover that just here yet. Just yet. Okay, so let's talk about the with keyword real quick. So like I said, you always need to close your files, right? That is something we kind of talked about. There's a simpler way to write this where you don't have to write your close all the time, where Python will automatically close it. So, God, we're talking about sorts again. That's all right. So let's see. With open. Oops. I'm just going to copy and paste because why not? I'm lazy. Alright, so this does this, well, I'll actually leave this. So this does the same thing. So let's talk about this line because this is new. So with open names and read, you know what this does. And essentially, you know what this part does, I should say. So what this whole thing does is take this kind of way of opening a file and assign it to F, which is basically does the same thing as this. But you'll notice now we're kind of in this block, right? We've indented. So what happens is when we leave this block, F automatically gets closed. Just it's just magic. A lot of languages have this. So like let's see, Java has the try with resources. There's a lot of different things.
Is that just built into Python?
Yeah, I mean, it's just nice because, you know, which one of these is better? I would say this is the better one because this will happen, like, say there was an error, so, like, we haven't talked about exceptions, and we're not going to talk about exceptions, but, like, if exceptions happened, it's possible that this close would never be hit. Well, this makes that automatically happen. So, yeah, this is kind of the way you're supposed to do it up here. Let's see. Respect on play. Is there any advantage to quicksort than merge sort? Quicksort, I think, is less. I guess you can do merge sort in place. Quicksort can be really heavily optimized, and it also generally performs a little bit better because of those optimizations. But you know, I mean, merge sort is a perfectly fine algorithm. Like Java's default sort is a merge sort. So you know, there's that. Okay, any questions on this with syntax? If you do a sys. So when the process dies, Mr. Swats, files automatically get freed. Or at least that's the theory.
In theory.
So yeah, if you exit, things automatically get freed. Like, a program can't hold on to a file past its lifetime. Okay, so it's challenge time. I want you to write some code that reads names from a file, so similar to this, from just a file called names. And I want you to do something like, I'm just going to write it down here so you can see everything, that will print person 1 is Whammer 100. Person 2 is Kletos. Person 3 is Nanthelis, and on and on and on and on for all the people in the file. Okay? That's what I want you to write. So go ahead and write that. Give me a REPL. You can use the Bang REPL to get the REPL link if you need it. Post your solutions, and we'll talk about a good one that I see.
Will this work on REPL? Can you open a file from?
I guess you can't run it, but that's a good way to send me the code at least.
Okay.
I can't email you a text file.
Please don't email me a text file.
Can I email you decompiled code?
Decompiled code?
Why is Steam Coupons giving me 75% off Valkyria Chronicles? I already own Valkyria Chronicles, Steam.
You can give that away.
You can own it. Own it some more.
I can't give it away.
Oh, really?
Not marketable. No. Oh, it is tradable though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, man.
3/4 of Valkyria Chronicles.
How
Like
ugly
12%.
does Python code get if you're doing something like a very complex?
I don't know,
val
like, because
code?
that forced white space, like, it
Yeah.
remains generally readable. I mean, you can write bad code in any language, but, you know.
Yeah, but like, but if you have a bunch of hierarchies, like, doesn't it just continue getting farther and farther to the right of the screen, right?
If you have a bunch of oh, you mean like if you have a bunch of
If
like,
I-
oh, if
it's
you have
not
something
like a
that's super
embedded
deep,
value.
you probably shouldn't, you probably should refactor your code because you're probably doing something wrong.
More or
I
less
guess.
language illiterate, but I can usually follow what's going on for any given bit of code. But looking at Spy Party code makes my head hurt.
Well, Spy Party is, I mean, C++ is its own beast.
C what
It is.
C++ is great.
C++
No,
is
I know
nice.
about.
Let's see.
It's complicated even for C++. Oh, we got
Well,
some
yeah,
solutions.
that's its own thing.
Well, I mean,
Jay
I
Green,
think-
how come I shave my magnificent beard? Because long beard's a huge pain in the ass. It'll grow back, don't you worry.
I mean, Checker didn't really make it readable for anyone outside of himself.
Alright, let's see. I like this. Alright, Mr. Swats gave a good solution. I'll give another minute for other people to send me a solution, and then we'll talk about... Yeah, it's just a cycle in my beard. That's all.
We are in the midst of the beard cycle.
Yeah, we're at the
This is
beginning.
This
I know
is the new moon.
We should make a a calendar based on my beard, right?
Yeah.
Just
I want-
every
yeah, I
cycle is
wanna,
like a beard
like,
month.
A screenshot of like
Nice.
every day.
I'm pretty sure we won't like
The
back
waxing
up to
and
the-
waning
The
of
waxing and
Hummus's
waning.
beard.
It's a new beard right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's saying. It's
Quarter.
we're on a new beard. And
How
then we
bad
got
match
full-
up to the
full
lunar
beard.
calendar though?
It's a full beard, a half beard. Works really well.
Exactly.
Well, I guess
A
in
gibbous
this one it
beard.
just
Yeah,
goes, it
God.
goes straight from
Beard.
full beard to
Yes.
I fully support this system too.
Yeah,
So
that
if-
would suck.
If something's not that common, will we call it the blue beard?
Oh my god.
That's a good point.
Alright, I'm
Is
just
that-
gonna stop this
Is the blue
conversation.
beard
Let's
two
take a
full
look.
beards in 1 month, or
Alright, let's take a look at Mr. Swats's solution. So do that. Yeah, so this is pretty good with open names for reading as the F. Oh, we have person is 0 for every line, person plus equals 1, and then print. So you haven't. Some of you probably haven't seen this. What this does is it's a more convenient way of doing something like you had to do something like print. Whoops. Print person plus person plus is plus line, right? That gets kind of annoying for like really where you have to print a lot of stuff. So this dot format, basically you'll notice these kind of special characters here. Basically this says take the first of these special brackets and replace it with person, and take this second bracket and replace it with line. So it's just kind of a convenient way of building strings like that, just because concatenating things with pluses can get really annoying. Cool. Anyone have any questions on that solution? Or on that stuff? I'll give like another minute or so.
That's really cool. The format.
The dot format.
Yeah.
Edward Dog, what's the difference between that and percent? I mean, functionally, they do more or less the same thing, right? It's a way to substitute strings inside, like data inside of strings. So the percent syntax that you've probably seen, that's kind of associated with like the printf function, which basically exists in every single like language ever. So it's not as pretty, but it's there. I like printf just because like I've used it for years. Person plus plus does not work in Python. You have to do this. Why wouldn't the characters show up? Is it because readlines is being used? I'm not sure what you mean. Yeah, Python does not have the increment operators like the post increment and or pre increment and post increment, or the decrement equivalents as well. So Python does not have that.
Could you use like a count online rather than making a new variable person to count down your?
So you can.
Yeah.
There are so there's something called enumerate.
Like, I'm thinking index of in
Yeah, so there's something
JavaScript.
called enumerate, which basically in a for loop gives you two things you iterate through. So that's what somebody did. I forgot. I think this was Wolf Darrigan. So enumerate does something similar like that.
Okay.
So let's actually run this. I'll just call it swats.py. Oops. So you'll see that. So you'll notice there's extra lines. That's because Mr. Swats did not strip out the /n characters. So that's why there's extra new lines. So if we did, line equals line dot strip, resave it, we'll get kind of that. So that is that.
Neat.
I love in that code that the person is the number and the line is the name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay.
I
You just called it
I thought
-1?
so.
That's decrement. Decrement, I guess, is the cool way of saying it. Sure. Alright. So I guess we can move on from reading files, yes?
Okay.
Sounds like it.
Sounds like it? Alright, excellent. What does this line mean in Java? I mean, it depends on... It calls the do something method in the process uploaded data class? I mean, I don't know, like, I need to see, like, what everything else is. So, like, it calls a method called do something, which is not a great name for a method.
Well, I mean, like, it's
Yeah.
descriptive, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, do something, sure. Okay, so-
hopefully do something does something, I should say it like that.
Alright, so let's talk about writing files now. So, actually, let's go through one more way of printing files. So, read lines basically reads all the lines at once, right, and puts them in that. No, you don't need to close, because this with open makes it will close the file as soon as you exit the block. So you don't need to do f.close explicitly. So when you do this kind of with open thing, you don't have to do the close. All right, so let's talk about one more thing that we can do.
Nice syntax.
So
Yeah.
let's see, with
Yep.
open names are, as f. I'm doing this in swats.py, but that's okay. So we can do, if you want a quick way of just iterating through lines, which is kind of a common thing that you do in files, you can iterate through them with a for loop. So you can just say like for line in f, print line, and that will do. We will print the line, because remember how you go through a for loop one time per element in that list? Well, f kind of acts like that when you put it in a for loop. It acts like a list of lines. So you don't actually have to do the read lines. Now, the nice thing about doing read lines is you can just read the entire file and then close it immediately. The problem with that is, you need to have enough memory to store the entire file. This way, you don't. So, there's that. You probably want to strip the line too, just so we don't have those extra new lines. All right. If syntax errors return, ban the user. Ooh, brutal. But sure. Alright, let's talk about writing. And holy god, there's a Facebook chat I'm in now that is like just going absolutely insane. And silenced. Alright. Is this like a for each loop? Yep, that's exactly what it is, respect on a plate. It is just like a for each loop. That is exactly it. Okay. I'll take a look at that later, Jim Bob. Okay, so let's talk about writing files. I'll create a new file. A new script. So writing.py. Okay, so we open the file in the same way. So we can do, with open. What should I do? What should I call this? I'll just call it numbers. Who cares? Numbers. But I'm going to use the W mode for write. Shocking, right? Actually, we're going to do this explicitly. We're just going to say f equals open, and then. God, what is going on over there?
Typing for business.
Oh, God.
Serious business here.
I see that. So f, again, is that kind of file handle, that file object that we were talking about. And there's a method on it called write. So we can just do f.write hello world. And then remember we should close it. If we save that and we run it. So here's all the files in that directory right now. So if we run python writing.py, you'll now see there's a file called numbers. And if I open it, you'll see it says hello world. So that's basically writing files in a nutshell. You can do the /n to do the new line again, kind of like you've seen. Remember when we read files, we had the new line. If you write a number itself, you actually have to cast it to a string. So you have to do the stir thing, kind of like when you're concatenating output. So if we do that again, and we reopen numbers, you'll see we have hello world and 1. Now you might ask yourself, well, hello world was already in that file, so how come we have just hello world and 1? Where did the first hello world go? So, hey, Divine Cobra, thank you for the follow. So let's see, where's my writing? When you open with this mode, this W mode, that basically says open it for writing, but any data that was already in that file, just get rid of and overwrite the entire file.
That seems dangerous.
Yeah, so what you want to do if you don't want to wipe the file when you do it, you want to use the A mode, which is short for append. So if we write this a bunch of times, I can just go ahead and run it a bunch. And if I look at the numbers, you can see we've written to the file a bunch of times. Okay, any questions about writing files?
Is there a nice way to write files similar to our what was I going to say? Is there a nice way to write files so that you don't have to close it at the end?
Yeah, so that with open syntax works
good.
exactly the same way. So we can do with open, whoops. Oh God, where'd it go? There we go. As F, and then it's a block, so we got to put them inside, and then the close gets happens automatically. So you can use that same with stuff. Can you only open .text files? You can open non-text files. They may not be in an obvious format, but what you want to do is, if with the R you append a B to the end, and that says, and that tells Python, this is a binary file. So let's see, actually, that is correct, Nanthelis. Genius, can you open files in shared mode? I believe so, but I don't remember the syntax off the top of my head. How about seeking in the file? Files get, I don't remember exactly when the flush happens, but obviously it happens on close, or you can flush when you want. There's a seek method on that file object, so you can seek back and forth in the file as you please. Actually, if we go to, well, here, I'll just open, I'll move this away so I can show you an example. Users, Benjamin, where am I? There we go. Whoops. So this was a binary file parser I wrote a while ago. Oh shit, I took out the file open part. Oh well. But here's an example of parsing binary data. A really helpful thing is called struct. Where'd it go? Where do I use struct around here? Oh yeah, my endian swap thing. Hey, Minor Chaos. Welcome and thank you. So yeah, here I have this kind of bytes read. I can buy. Oh yeah, here we go. So this unpack kind of helps you unpack. So this unpacks like a short and unpacks ints and unpacks bytes. So the struct module is really really useful for parsing binary data if you need it. So it's very useful. Here I forgot to endian swap when I was writing these special values down. So whoops, that's okay. All right, any other questions about that sort of stuff? Is a text file a good way to store high scores? Yeah, text file is totally fine. I mean, it's not the most secret way, so like I can, modify the text file, but whatever, I can modify that shit anyway, right? If it's like in a MySQL, if it's in like a SQLite database or whatever, then sure.
Rot 13.
Hmm.
No one will crack your secret code.
How do you rot 13 numbers,
rot 13
though?
numbers? Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Numbers,
Add 13 to each number. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, there you go.
It just keeps it at the same number.
Rot, yeah.
I think is how Rot 13 deals with numbers.
Yeah, it
or
does.
any other
It just
special
doesn't touch.
characters.
Yeah, it just doesn't touch numbers. All right. So, any questions on reading and writing?
What are the other special characters? Sorry, special things for opening a file? You were
Oh,
talking
you mean the
about?
modes?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's R, which we talked about. There's W, which we talked about. There's A, which we talked about. If you add the B to the end of any of those, that means this is binary mode. So I'm dealing with like a non-text file. There's if you add a plus, so like R plus means both reading and writing. Oops, don't want there. I think that's it. So you can do like R plus B. Means this is reading and writing a binary file. So there you go. Those are kind of some of the different modes.
Mm-hmm. Why do I feel like there's a mode missing?
If there's a mode missing, like if you don't put the mode, it just assumes a read mode.
Is it read mode?
Yeah,
Okay.
it just assumes it. If you don't specify by itself. I mean, it's good practice to specify the mode, but if you don't, it'll just assume reading a text file. Okay, any other questions? What will W plus W do? I don't know, Whammer, try it and see. Alright, I am going to assume that nobody has any questions. Okay, so in that case, we've been talking for about 45 minutes. This will be a little shorter than usual. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about. So over the last 8 weeks, you learned a lot. You learned about, kind of what a program is. You learned about variables. You learned about if statements. You learned about all those loops, while loops. You learned about for loops. You learned about functions. You learned about classes. You learned about the different data structures like lists and dictionaries and tuples. And now you've learned how to read and write files. So everything we've kind of talked about is basically what you would expect from kind of the, a beginning course, like a first semester course in a computer science degree. Like I didn't go into as much depth as they would. Like you'd probably talk about like different sorting methods and stuff like that, but you got enough for like a really good practical overview. So I just want to thank you all for coming back, and everyone who did the homework and asked questions and all that stuff. This was kind of an experiment, but I think it turned out really well. So I just want to talk a little bit before I start taking questions about where do you go from here. So there's a couple places you can go from here. I'm going to give you some ideas, and obviously feel free to pick what you want. So the first idea that actually somebody suggested me, and this can be kind of really fun, is if you want to write web pages, there is something called Flask. So that's I'll paste a link in the chat. So Flask is a Python web framework. So for example, here's a Flask server right here, this whole thing. You just say, so this is a special kind of what we call a decorator. You say, the home page, so this route, that's kind of the slash route, like no special page. You just give it a function. You say return hello world, and that, shows hello world. Flask can do a lot of really cool things. So this is a really, really, really cool thing to check out if you're interested in writing web pages. You'll have to dig a little bit more, like, it's not, you can't just take what we've talked about over the last 8 weeks and go ahead and make the most beautiful things. But the key to getting better at coding is like pick a project and learn how to do, and like kind of just learn by doing it. So like if you want to learn how to make web pages and you want to learn how to make like some cool web app, start with something like Flask. And anytime you have a question, just go ahead and Google. Like you can Google like Flask. How do I do I don't know, whatever you want to do. Like how do I store things on a server, or how do I upload a file or something like that, and you'll be able to find it. Mr. Sloss, yeah, I use for my Spy Party draft website. I do use Flask. So like draft me a Spy Party. This uses Flask for its backend. If actually you can look at and it's even open source. So if you want to see what a Flask website looks like, you can see it. It's all right here. Let's see. So another Scratch. Scratch is kind of cool. Yeah, if you want to kind of practice a little bit more with the basics, Scratch is a really cool thing to check out. I'll paste a link for that. Oh no, we already did that. There's already a link there. So Scratch is another cool thing to check out.
CS50 is also really good if you are if you want to self-teach. They have a bunch of lectures, and it's intro to programming, and you'll learn a lot of stuff.
If you're feeling a little more adventurous and you've got some money to spend, you can pick up one of these. So this is called a Raspberry Pi. I don't know if you've ever seen one. But essentially, like, this is a small computer, right? It's like the size of my credit card.
They have the $5 ones now, too.
Oh, that's true. They have like the $5 ones. Raspberry Pis are what, like $30, $35 or so?
Yeah.
They're basic computers, right? Like they've got USB, networking, they've got an HDMI out, so you can plug it into a monitor. But more importantly, and this is where the adventure part comes in, they have these pins, which you can see here. So some of these pins are what are called Gpio pins, or general purpose input-output. So you can hook cool things like lights and motors and LCD screens and stuff like that. So if you're feeling adventurous, and there's Python libraries for controlling lights and stuff for Raspberry Pi. So if you're feeling super adventurous, you can go ahead and check that out. So here's a cool link to check that out.
Or you want to see your code do something.
Yeah, if you want to see your code actually interact with the real world, and I'll admit, like, that's probably the coolest thing is to you write a program to even flash a light. You're just like, oh my god, how does this shit work? Thank you for the follow. I just totally missed your name.
DW Morrison 32.
DW Morrison, thank you for the host, and thank you for the host, Whammer, and thank you for the follow, DW Morrison. So yeah, I like Raspberry Pis. You can do a lot of really cool things with them. So they're great little computers. Really, really cool. So those are a couple ideas. Other ideas like, if you have a job and you think about, a process that you do every day that's something that can be automated. There's a lot out there. How many Raspberry Pis do I own? I have this one. I have one that's sitting over there. I have one that's sitting over. I have three, I think. I have three Raspberry Pis.
I have one.
So there you go.
It is an arcade.
I have one as well.
Yeah, Raspberry Pis are really, really neat. It was like the first low-cost computer that I think actually kind of worked. So yeah, it's Raspberry Pi, by the way, like the number. So yeah, there you go. Let's see if my camera will focus on that. Yeah, there you go, Raspberry Pi. You will need to know a little bit about Linux, but it shouldn't be so bad. There's a lot of tutorials for how to write code for Raspberry Pis. But yeah, think about things like in your everyday life, something you would want to automate. The nice thing is there's Python bindings for basically everything. So like I have those, like those Philips Hue lights or whatever. Like I can Google search Python Philips Hue. And there you go, the very first result. Here's some Python code that tells me how to interact with the Python, or with those lights. So you could write something to control your lights. You could do all sorts of cool stuff. So I really encourage you to kind of go out. Hey, Paris 220, thank you for the follow as well. So I encourage you to go out and kind of experiment.
Hummus, are you going to yell at your lights?
Am I going to yell at my lights? No, I'm not going to yell at my lights. So I would encourage you to to go out, kind of experiment, think of something cool to do. Like, yeah, you've learned the basics, which is like enough to get started, but there's so much more out there. And I just want to thank you all for kind of coming. Like, this was really cool. I really enjoyed, teaching this. I hope you all enjoyed learning. I hope this, made a lot of sense. If it didn't, you can watch the videos again. Hopefully that will help. If not, I'll be around.
Swat's question.
Yeah, I saw Mr. Swatz's question. I will get to that in just a second. So yeah, I just want to kind of thank you all for, sticking with me through this. This was really cool. So thank you. I'm glad you hopefully found some use out of this. So Mr. Swatz wants to know what's the best way to read large files in Python. So you probably don't want to read like the entire file into memory at once. I mean, that's the whole point. So these read and write. So there's a function called like f.read, and it takes a file. It takes a size like 1,000, right? So, like, say 1024. So you can read like chunks of 1024 bytes at a time. So, like, if you read 1024, that'll read the first, kilobyte of the file, and then if you call it again, it'll read the next, kilobyte of the file, and you'll keep going. Excuse me, until there's nothing left. Let's see. Could you set up a network connection between your computer and a Raspberry Pi that lets you turn lights on or off from your computer? Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think that's it for the lessons. I mean, I'm obviously going to keep them on my YouTube video or on my YouTube channel, but yeah, I'm gonna just kind of take random questions, I suppose, if anyone has them, and if not, I will just kind of work
like what you've been doing.
like what I've been doing. Yeah. Let's see. So we'll take that away.